Pat Howlett, we wanted to talk to you about DAOs because you are in the process of building one out. And really, what is it? Why should people pay attention to it?
A couple of things. First of all, good to see you, Martin, Dana. It's good to be here. Always good to visit with you guys. So a couple of things. What is a DAO? DAO, so it's DAO, pronounced DAO. And what it is a decentralized. So most things that we know out there, corporations, government, small and large, are centralized. If you think about it, a football team's centralized, so all the decisions are made at certain levels. And so the first part of the DAO is decentralization, okay? Mm-hmm. The second part of it's autonomous, meaning that if we created a DAO, we could be in any parts of the world, and as long as we were doing what was on mission for that DAO, for that organization to do, we don't need to be in charge. Martin doesn't need to be in charge. Pat doesn't need to be in charge. We're just going to work it through. And so that's the autonomous. The DAO is autonomous from other organizations, other things. And the last, so that's a D and an A. The last thing is an O, it's an organization. If you think about it and you want to get your head wrapped around, what is it close to? What's it something that I almost would be familiar with? Think of a cooperative. Think of something like REI or other cooperatives, to where everybody owns a piece of the stake in a co-op. So you have corporations, which are all top down, right? And sometimes in corporations, the people who work for the corporations aren't really the folks who are actually in charge. It's the stakeholders that have bought shares that may never be interested in the core part of the organization. Their interest may vary, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm a capitalist. There's nothing wrong with it, okay? But their interest is in making money. It may not be in moving the mission forward or doing something with regards to what an organization wants to do. So when we compare things, we can say corporations are top down, and a lot of stakeholders don't really have a day-to-day interest in the organization in most cases. And that's why you see in some places, people will short the market. They'll take a long position. It's really to make money in that market. Well, you can't really do that in a DAO, okay? Hard to do in a co-op. Because again, now when you say decentralized autonomous organization, it doesn't mean there isn't leadership. So you're not void of leadership. Again, think of a co-op. In a co-op, and you look at an REI, a lot of people know of REI. It's a cooperative. There's lots of them. A lot of food producers, a lot of farmers create co-ops, and you'll see it on your butter, or you'll see it on milk, or you'll see it on things. That this was brought to you by a cooperative of farmers, because individually they can't do it themselves. Individually, they can't have enough silos and processing and those kinds of things. So they join together in order to bring milk or butter or eggs or whatever to the marketplace, wheat, all those things. So these are really familiar things, okay? So could you do, so if I looked at it, when I think about it, I could do a cooperative offline, okay, in the traditional world. Martin, you could be the president, running the cooperative. I might run a branch of it. Dana may be running the finance department, and we'd all be running. And then certain members would actually, buy their REI equipment. They'd buy their camping equipment, and they'd get a discount because the motivation isn't profit in REI. It's they have to be profitable, but it's not all 100% profit driven. There's a couple of other legs to that stool. So what's the difference? So online, you would create this DAO, this DAO, this decentralized autonomous organization, because it can be on the blockchain. Now, a lot of people are familiar with blockchain by virtue of the things that get the attention, right? Crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, those kinds of NFTs, yacht monkey, apes, that kind of. So all those kind of things. Blockchain is just basically a ledger. It's a ledger book that's public, that anybody can see what's going on. So imagine for a minute, you actually could see at any particular period of time, if you owned stock in Apple, and at any period of time, you could go look at their ledger and see exactly where money's coming in, where money's going out. Are they paying politicians? Are they paying themselves? You could see it. It'd be public. Well, they're not going to do that for a good reason. They don't want their competitors to see those. But again, in the blockchain, everything's right there. It's visible. It's transparent. Okay. So when you start looking at these things, if I took REI or a cooperative and I took them online into what's called Web3, but I would prefer just call it blockchain, okay, then it's a lot easier for folks that are involved to see everything that's happening on the organization and really commit to it, right? And then so that's kind of what a DAO is. I wanted to kind of do corporations, cooperatives, DAOs.
A couple basic question, or a basic question is this a legal entity of any kind yet?
Yeah, so Wyoming. The DAO itself isn't a legal entity. It's so new. It's kind of like LLCs weren't legal until a couple of states made them legal. Okay, so we run through this. This isn't a technical thing. Incs weren't legal until they were legal. Okay, LLCs weren't legal until there were things around it, till the IRS understood where it was. So DAOs are ahead of the tax ramifications. Okay. But also the legal thing. Now, certainly, I think Wyoming was the first to actually create DAOs created in Wyoming can be legal organizations, kind of like when people create incorporations in Delaware, right? Mm-hmm. Lots of companies are in Delaware for their even though they've maybe never been to Delaware, because Delaware was a very favorable state to create an incorporation. So they're not legal right now, but what you're starting to find out is that the DAO isn't the be all end all. So the DAO can be where proposals. I have a great idea for the company or the organization. I'd like to help write code. I want to participate in these things. So it's great for coordination. It's great for voting. I don't think we should do that. What about doing this? So it allows the best ideas to come forward, because anybody can present an idea. It gets voted on. So that brings in governance. So when you start having, the mob will kill the mob, right? Groups in the end do that. So this can't be, so a DAO isn't chaos. It actually is the opposite of it, because it's all about governance and allowing people to have input into it. And then all you need to do is, if Dana, if you have a great idea for our DAO, and I do, and Martin does, and we propose those in a proposal, it goes to all the membership, and all the membership says, you know what, I really like what Martin's saying. Dana, that's really good, but it needs to be tweaked, but where Martin's going with that, and the group just says, let's go Martin's way. It expedites things a lot. There usually isn't anything that's done in the back room, because these proposals. So the DAO itself is more for, how do you organize, how do you communicate, how do you propose, how do you create proposals that are voted on, and then how do you govern, then the governance, and the governance will be over those things, but also a treasury, which we can talk about a little later. But these things they can get funded. Okay. See, if I start a small little nonprofit or little co-op, it's really hard for me to get funded. In many cases, I've got to get qualified investors, right? I've got to, there's prospectus, SEC things. In a DAO, I can actually raise money in the DAO by either NFTs or by a token, and have people acquire those. When they acquire those, they're acquiring the ability, one man, one woman, one vote kind of things, right? In order to do that. So it really spreads things out. So what you're seeing is people will create a DAO with this, because a DAO is software too. Keep in mind, the blockchain and all this stuff is code. Bitcoin is code. It's not a coin, it's code. And so all NFTs, that's code. So all of this stuff is digitized reality, right? Now I'm not talking about the metaverse side of it. I'm just talking about all this stuff resides in code on dispersed computers all over the world. And that's one of the great, beautiful things about it, because it's really hard to attack something that's dispersed, that doesn't have a point of attack. You're seeing people wrap these DAOs around things like either the Wyoming, or I think it's Vermont that has that. And you're going to see more things going. So I will say to anybody looking at this, that's really one of the areas of concern we have, creating a DAO. We are creating a DAO. We're helping some other folks create DAOs, okay? But you need to make sure that act as if the SEC already rules what you're doing. Act as if the IRS already is going to do that. So do those things that actually are rather conservative, that aren't hype, that aren't any of those things, and focus on what your mission is, rather than this and the other. And again, that's for the kind of DAO, the kind of the social good DAO that we're creating. There are other investment DAOs, and you guys may have heard things like the Constitution DAO, right? Or DAOs to create real estate, or DAOs to buy other things. There was the Constitution DAO. The Constitution, a copy of the Constitution came up for sale, and a group of folks said, you know what? Hey, let's go buy the Constitution. There's folks that have decided, you know what? Not that you could do it, but hey, let's go. We've got a lot of money. Let's go buy an NFL team. Let's buy the Broncos. They're for sale. So you can get a group of people together that pull their funds together with a specific purpose of what they want to do. That one was they wanted to buy that copy of the Constitution. If they can't buy the Constitution, it's pretty much dissolved. That was the objective. Everybody's what that wants to be involved in it. People are communicating on how do we do that? Where's our bid? What do we need to do? And if it succeeded, that group would have owned that copy of the Constitution. If it doesn't succeed, that was just a one-off kind of DAO. So these things don't have to be forever machines, right? They can be very specific. I will say you're going to start seeing nonprofits create DAOs, because it's going to be a lot easier for somebody to say, I give them $1,000 a year, but I never know what they're doing. I never know what's going on. But if I was able to actually do something with, and let's say the Red Cross now is a DAO, and I can see their ledger, and I know exactly what they're doing. And I know when I put my money in there, I can actually watch my money go in there based on that address. And I can actually say, you know what, the fires in Colorado, or the hurricane here, or the tornadoes, we need to up our thing. It'd be easier for me to say, I see exactly what you're doing with those things. I want to put more money into it. And then I get a vote, but I would actually help that treasury accomplish those things. So I think you're going to see certainly nonprofits. You're going to see investment DAOs. That's like what I talked about with the Constitution. There's an investment DAO created by, let's say, a group of folks in Raleigh wanted to save a pristine area from development. Maybe nobody in their own selves has the money to do that, and because developers would have the money, and they have the access to capital markets, and they have access to investors, right? But if I were there and there were a whole group of folks, instead of just protesting or trying to do this thing, if we all said, let's create a DAO to buy the meadow, to buy that wooded area, to buy that marshland, to buy those things, we could actually raise funds there. And it doesn't have to just be with people in Raleigh. It'd be somebody else, someplace else says, you know what? I want to also protect redwoods or marshlands or those kind of things. And you can raise those dollars, buy that piece of property, that building for a nonprofit, and now you control that asset. The many can do what in many cases they couldn't do. Funding mechanisms, governance, and also communication.
There's several things here that I love that's connected to the training Dana and I do on cryptocurrency and blockchain. One is the idea of integrity through transparency. And that's something I learned years ago, is the more we know what each other are doing, the easier it is to build trust. And the other thing is, if only one person has the master key, it's easier to know who to rob first. And the security that it offers by having it diversified and distributed on the blockchain like this creates something that you can bring into existence that if it serves the purpose, it can outlive you. And it can be coded so that if it doesn't serve the purpose, it stops going.
Yeah. I mean, we say sometimes with regards to the old kind of school way would say, character is a thing you do when nobody's watching. It's a thing you would do, how you treat people, what you do things. We live in a pretty much untrustworthy period. And it may be no worse than other untrustworthy periods, but it's what we've got right now. And it's really bad. Who's telling the truth? Who's not telling the truth? Where things are, how can I map what somebody said to that real person? Some of these things are talking points that you can't go back and who originally said this, you know what I mean? And so when you're able to have, again, transparency, and you're able to actually see the ledger, see the books, and you're able to then point that, and again, some of these may be pseudo-anonymous people, it doesn't have to be. Again, since it's, I can have anonymous members of my DAO. That doesn't have to be Dana Gower, doesn't have to be Martin Brossman, doesn't have to be Pat Howlett. It could be Big Pat Daddy, 724, because that's not the important thing. Identity, it's so you can also have privacy. So here's a cool thing. You map a trustless platform, meaning I don't have to trust it. I don't really have to trust it because I can see everything, right? I'm less concerned on who's doing things rather than what's being done. You know what I mean? Are we moving forward with our mission? Can I go in there? Did anybody move funds from someplace to someplace? Where are we spending our money? What's the governing process? When we look offline, we say and there's people that say all elections are bad. You can't trust any elections. You've taken the election, you stole the election, you did whatever to the election, you gerrymandered districts. We really don't have that online. You know what I mean? We really don't have that in the blockchain because, again, everything's right there. Now, truth though, blockchain's still pretty darn technical.
Mm-hmm.
I really, if I can just for a second, not talk about DAOs, but just talk about the blockchain.
Yeah.
Folks, it's the Wild West. If you haven't seen the crashes and the volatility, it's there. But keep in mind, crashes in stock markets, and MADAO didn't have a problem. There's Ponzi schemes and bad folks that have been in stock markets and in the Fed and messing with money since there's been men and money, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't change. Men and money, men and crypto, same kind of things. A good percentage of those coins that are out there are garbage. In all frankness, some of those people deserve to go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some utility in some of these tokens, okay? There's some real things with some of these tokens. So when you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you're evaluating what blockchain is. Bitcoin has a real purpose. You can do your own research and get past the fear and doubt and uncertainty, the FUD, and get past all the hypes and the shilling, and go read the white paper, what it really is. What does it really do? Because again, it's transparent. It's code. Bitcoin is code. Okay. When you start looking at Ethereum, what does it do? So if there's no utility, so I'm going to bring this to DAOs. If there's no utility in it, if there's nothing other human beings will do and want, and all it is a token that people want to jack the price up, pump, dump, make money off of, stay away. It has no purpose. So so when we're looking at DAOs and blockchains and all those kind of things, you really need to look at, it truly is the Wild West. It truly is a buyer beware. There's probably fewer than 50 real projects, although there's probably 18,000 crypto projects out there. There's probably only about 50 that are legitimate, that are funded. You can see the stuff, okay? So when you look at that and you say, okay, well, that's Wild West. Yeah, but we carve out these DAOs and that's not Wild West. Again, that's people getting together with something in common, and they're just using software like we've all been used to using with LinkedIn or with Alignable or with Nextdoor or to a degree Facebook. We've gotten used. When people start talking about the metaverse, we've already been in the metaverse. It doesn't have to be this thing where we're not with our friends anymore, but we just port them into our living room and we're talking to them with not being there. Or we can go to Rome in 300 BC. Metaverse is actually when you can take yourself and project yourself into another place, like the three of us are doing. I'm in Southern Colorado. Mm-hmm. You guys are in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. This is the metaverse. Mm-hmm. We're getting used to, if we start looking at all of the hype that's on these things, we're going to forget that most of these things are familiar to us. That they're familiar to us. Bank accounts, wallets, those kind of things. It is harder. Don't go way out west. Stay with the wagon train. Stay with a good guy. Because there are a lot of people that are getting hurt. But that isn't the real work that's being done in the blockchain. That's the bad, that there are a lot of bad actors out there. So with regards to what, where I see some of these things with DAOs going is that if you, I'm gonna riff for just a minute, okay? If you look at wealth creation, okay, and if you look at somebody being able to have a piece of something, rather than I work for some company for 30 years, I get a gold watch and a pension. We know you don't get a gold watch and there's no pensions anymore, okay? Wouldn't it be great if the company you worked for actually gave you more than a paycheck, but actually gave you entree into what's happening in that company, to bring your best ideas, to be paid based on what you do and what you bring to there. Very hard to do in a corporate structure. That's all top down. That's all politics. Who's going to be in there? That's all golden parachutes. It's money behind the scenes. It's actually a lot of manipulation from folks outside there. The folks that are actually working in those organizations really have very little to do with that company. I mean, look at Kodak is hardly around anymore. You can just look at all of the companies. Had Walmart understood what Web 1.0 was, we probably wouldn't have Amazon.
Yep.
You look at most of the folks that are out there. Shouldn't some of the oil companies have thought they were in the energy and they be the biggest solar and energy storage companies? But so when you look at those organizations, there were people inside of them that probably knew where things were going, but there was no way for them to get that heard. There's no mechanism. So if you open up the organization and you allow the best ideas to come forward, and you allow people to talk about those best ideas, and then you have that group of people that are ready. As soon as we have the best idea, let's go forward and buy that property. Let's buy the swamp, the marshland, and protect it because it filters water. Let's buy that part. As soon as you have people doing that, DAOs give you the mechanism in order to actually do that governance, put into one place. Everybody has a share of it. Really simple. And I would just say this: the legal and tax structure is coming, but that's coming with a lot of things. Again, if you don't do anything until everything's perfect, you may be waiting a long time. Okay. Right now, I would just say steer clear of things that cost a lot of money, but things that will take your time. Joining a DAO that actually is doing good work in something you're interested in, and you have some kind of talent, that's a good thing. That's a good thing to do. And so cut your teeth, join it, decide, what, I code, maybe I can bring my coding to there. I'm a designer, I'll bring my design work to the DAO. I understand how to do social media and communication and community management, then bring that to the DAO. See, it's almost like that old fable of stone soup, somebody brings the pot that, this fable goes, a traveler's going through a town and is not trusted. It was during a time where they just wanted you to walk through. Knocks on doors, said, "Hey, listen, do you have anything? I've got, I'm hungry." Nope, they're going anything, keep on going. Goes down by the river, puts his pot up there, puts some water from the river in there, starts a fire. People are looking out. What's that guy doing? He said, and he pulled out of his backpack this stone and put it in there. He said, "I'm just making stone soup. And as soon as it's done, it'll be a glorious broth." You say, "Stone soup?" Well, yes, if I had a little pepper or I had a little salt, maybe some vegetables, and God forbid if I got some meat in here of any kind, it would be a glorious stew. And we would share it with all. Well, pretty soon people say, "Well, you know what? I do have a little bit of salt and pepper." So I think some of these things, blockchain, are like the community's making stone soup. You bring what you have. If all you have is salt and pepper, good, because that's going to make it taste better. If you do have meat and you do have those things, you can bring it. So this is and I hope that analogy kind of works for folks, because that's what these are. That's what these are, is you can bring what little or most you have, your skills and talents and passion, and actually create something. And again, in our space, something that's a greater good kind of DAO.
Pat, you've covered so much here about giving us clues, I think, about how these DAOs can materialize, grow, provide opportunity, and maybe an overused term is empowerment, perhaps, but it strikes me that these things, just like crypto has given everyday people an opportunity to do something pretty fabulous. Okay, this is going to open up opportunities, it seems to me, for everyday people to do things, along with wealthy people to do things in special space. I do have a question for you, because you talk a lot about the accuracy of blockchain and it's immutable, you can't change it and all that. One thing that's rolling around my head, though, and maybe others listening, is how do you prevent garbage in, garbage out? You know, like you think about Facebook, it's unregulated pretty much. They have fact checkers, but it's kind of like anybody can post anything. You know, I could say, hey, Martin and Pat, you know, I saw 3 aliens last night, and you know, and it's been verified by the Raleigh police. You know, I mean, you know, how do you prevent that in a DAO, in a serious one, where like the one you're building, to prevent people from just populating stuff in there that doesn't belong?
So first of all, impossible to prevent. If it were, we'd be doing that for we've been doing that for 100 some odd years. As soon as you get enough people into something, bad stuff happens, bad actors will be there. But here's what you try and do, right? When you're creating the DAO, you're going to create a manifesto. And what you're trying to do is filter people in or out. And the manifesto will kind of disclose, what are we going to do? What's our objective? And you hope that folks don't join the DAO to start with, because they're going to be putting time in. So you hope there's some filtering there, so that somebody that, let's say, believes that all elections are terrible, if you had a DAO that actually had this is what we're trying to do, and this is how we're going to do elections, and the whole purpose there was to do, they have a choice. Do you want to continue to say all elections are terrible, or do you want to get involved in something that's trying to help local elections? So you have that kind of manifesto. The next thing you try and do, and we're working on these things ourselves, is create a constitution. Now, here's what we know. Our constitution is not a hard thing to read. In many cases, it's not a hard thing to understand. However, for some reason, interpretation goes all crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a constitution, and it gets challenged on all areas for all different things. What does it really say? Can you really have a gun? Can you have a machine gun? Can I have a bazooka? Can I have a nuke? All those things. And there are some people that believe you should be able to have all those things. So I would say this, a DAO or anything on a blockchain is no cure for the evils of man. You know what I mean? What can it do? It can filter folks that shouldn't be in that DAO, in that organization. Like folks that don't go outdoors and don't have an outdoor lifestyle probably should not join REI's co-op. There's no benefit for them. But folks that do like that should join as a member of that organization, that co-op, so they can reap the benefits of all those things. So that REI can go in the marketplace, say, sell us tents at this price because we have 1 million members who are going to buy those tents, right? So you can actually have an REI taking group wealth and maybe buying at pricing that is similar to what a Walmart would do with their wealth. But more to your question, Dana, I just don't think. I think there will always be bad actors. I think there will, and we see that in certain spectrums of crypto right now. Quite frankly, there are a lot of people that don't want blockchain and crypto to work. They have very significant treasuries, money, and it's easier for them to short it, to run, to put things out of business, versus letting this thing continue to grow and maybe take over more business. So when you have enemies of the state out there, which anything does, right? Almost all these things do. And then you have people that some are just motivated, that there is greed. I'll just use that word. There's greed, right? And there are folks that want to manipulate things. I'll just take this. In many primaries, in an old system that we've been running for a very long time, there'll be people of a certain political persuasion that just for that will change their affiliation just to vote in somebody else's primary, just to muck up the works. We've not figured out how to handle bad actors. You know what I mean? But if a DAO is specific enough of what it wants to do, I think what we do is we make it almost not worth somebody's time to join it, because the process is going to take very long to get anything done. It's not like if I had a DAO running and Martin came in and he wants to come in and create bad. Well, he doesn't have to just get one. He doesn't have to just talk to the president of the company or maybe the marketing department. He doesn't have. He has to go and convince 51% or 60% of the whole organization that his idea or what he wants to do is worth it. Some of these things actually offer some self-policing that we just don't have in top-down organizations. But as far as evil, I'll tell you what, do news on crypto or any of these things every day, and you will find somebody creating an opportunity for themselves out of greed for bad. They're just bad actors.
Which is just how money has throughout time, how the dollar throughout time, humanity, politics, everything. The internet, when it started, was used mostly by criminals in the very beginning.
Well, I don't want to exactly. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but you know what? If you're the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Fund, and the dollar, not the British sterling, what used to be as good as it's as good as gold, but the dollar. There's so many being printed, and they don't get printed. They just add zeros at the end of their ledger. Right. See, the Fed has a ledger too. We can never see it though. Mm-hmm. Now that's a big difference with regards to blockchain and seeing everything there. And the Federal Reserve, and you say, what did they do with that $1 trillion they said they printed and added to it? Mm-hmm. Now keep in mind, when they do that, we in the U.S. are always benefiting because it's the U.S. dollar. Mm-hmm. So it's not the China yuan, it's not a ruble, it's not any of those things. It's the dollar, and as long as it's the dollar that actually is the currency of the world, and not petro, which looks like that's the fight right now. As long as it's that, we'll do okay. But here's the thing: if you are one of the out of the world, I think there's like 8 billion people, and 6 billion of them are unbanked. Mm-hmm. They don't have a bank account. They can't get a bank account. They live in a place where there aren't any banks there. They live in a place where their currency has been so deflated that you could take a wheelbarrow out. In Turkey here recently, the lira, the bakers couldn't put enough money together to buy flour to make bread. And when they say, so you couldn't even make bread and water. You know what I mean? And we have lots of things going on. So when you have those kinds of things, look at certain countries that have always been down. You look at the Haiti, you look at Puerto Rico, you look at some of the South America, certainly most of the African countries, where they are so far down the monetary importance scale that when we go into debt and it hurts us here, they're already in starvation mode. I mean, actually lives are at stake there, not that you'll maybe lose your second car or not be able to buy that second home, right? When those folks can actually use the blockchain, when those folks can actually come up with a currency that isn't deflated by somebody else deciding that we have an unlimited supply, and we'll print as many as we want, and when we have debt, we'll just put it over on these other countries. They'll have to be the folks that take the debt. You start looking at what a Puerto Rico could do if they created their own currency. And they had expatriates and people there buying that currency, and it had some scarcity to it. And folks on that island traded those dollars. See, there are still small communities in the U.S. that have their own currency. I know the Pittsburgh, I think, still has the plenty, right? Cornell has a currency. There's several places, I think, out there in California, Humboldt. Well, that hardly ever loses any value because it's very scarce. People accept it. So you have countries that actually have that option to be able to not be deflated because of manipulation, overpricing, that kind of thing. That's where I see the incredible opportunity to take people that can't even bank. So keep this in mind, because we bank, right? We just think we have a card. We take, which card do I want to use, right? It's good anywhere. But if I live in some of these other countries and I'm one of those 6 billion, not the 2 billion that are banked, but some of 6 billion, I'm running around with money in my pocket trying to get someplace. These immigrants and these refugees, whatever they have on them right now. Mm-hmm. It's going to be stolen from them. Mm-hmm. It's going to be taken from them. There's no place for them to put it. Now, if they could actually buy Bitcoin when they're now things and move things to there, well, they can protect it. They can send it someplace else. They can have it waiting for them in another country. They can send it to another person. They're not spending 30% Western Union to somebody, right? So when you start looking at those things, that's the kind of the landscape of blockchain and crypto and tokens. Now bring it back to DAOs. You can now take a microcosm of that. And I could have a nonprofit. I could have in Trinidad, Colorado, have it to where a lot of people say, I think it's terrible that people are homeless. And some of them just need a driver's license or just need a job or just need some rent control, those kind of things. Now, some have real issues and need counseling, mental care, drug. That's a percentage, right? But there's a big percentage that aren't that, veterans, et cetera, that aren't that, okay? If I created a DAO here instead of a nonprofit, I actually could fund it from any place all over the place. I could actually have a whole bunch of people look at what they're creating. We could buy instead of waiting for maybe some big authority, state of Colorado, Trinidad, federal government to come in and give us some kind of grant. We could grant ourselves the funds in order to buy a facility, a safe camp, some of those kind of things. So when you really start looking at DAOs, it ends up being really a local thing you can do. Again, buy that piece of property that you're trying to protect from developers. Buy that building that actually helps your organization move forward, and buy the building. See, a lot of small organizations they have to rent their space. And as soon as the things go well, their rent goes up and now they're out. You know what I mean? We see that in blighted areas when the creative class goes into a blighted area, brings cool, coffee shops and breweries, and then it gets cool and then they're all kicked out. Rents are brought up. So we have displacement all over the place. But if you actually could, the three of us got together and said, you know what, we want to do something on this project. Where the three of us are not capable. We need smarter minds. We need people that understand finance. We need people that understand coding. We need people that understand the government stuff. And we need to well, let's go recruit those folks. And when they come in, they're going to have an equal say in what we're trying to do with this mission, with what our manifesto set out and what our Constitution dictates, right? There's a lot you can do when you really start looking at it. You can have DAOs that are just in a neighborhood, and you can have DAOs that are worldwide in order to try and feed hungry people. Just the same way as you could have a co-op running a brewery, or you can have Budweiser running a brewery. Now, the thing about it is, if a co-op runs a brewery, the driver's really vested, the brewer's really vested, the person that gets in there with the hairnet and cleans everything, the janitor is vested. All those folks, the bottling person, all those folks are vested. You vest people in their future. They come to work with a little springery step, They smile a little bit more. They understand they don't want waste. They understand that that's not a great idea. They're actually also your salesperson. Your driver's selling the beer off the truck too, because he says, listen, you ought to try this new beer. I just think it changes that. And so what does it really change? It's wealth creation for people. People that couldn't be banked now get a bank account. Safety, security. They're not subject to attack. That's just having some money to be able to buy your groceries and pay somebody and not be taken advantage of. You take that, you solve that little problem where people can finally be banked, and then you take it that people can actually do amazing good together as long as they're in the same pool. Oh my gosh, hold on, folks, because there's some good stuff happening here soon. Just get rid of the hype that's out there on those other things and look at these. Are really simple. We've already been here before. The metaverse doesn't have we don't have to wait for goggles. You can jump in now. The water's fine. Put your toes in, do a little bit. But crypto is not blockchain. Crypto is not blockchain. Ethereum is not blockchain. Bitcoin is not blockchain. Blockchain is kind of, if you think about it, when the internet came out, and I was an internet service provider in the very beginning, okay? Little squeaky modems, beginning. Nobody wanted to take their credit card out and go into somebody's website. Secure sockets didn't exist there. But the only things, and I'm not going to, but the only things people would take their credit out were crazy guys that was doing gambling and going to porn sites. Now, those companies were able to get people to take their credit cards out. But if anybody remembers that time, you didn't take your credit card out. You didn't know what the heck was going to happen.
No.
Well, right. Everybody's a Prime member now. You pay for everything on that. People have more stuff. Amazon has more credit card numbers than any entity would ever have, and the next 10 combined. So, and you don't have any. You go there now and you hit the one click button. We're so programmed now to trust it, right? Do we just click the one click button and send it to them? I'm gonna have it in 1 day or 2 days, right? That was the resistance in the internet. And again, everybody remember the sock puppet? They raised like $200 million, then they exploded. They call it the dot bomb, right? Implosion. There's going to be a lot of carnage in this, like any other new technologies. If anybody remembers before DOS, there was like 18 different versions of CPM. Lots of companies trying to do things. Some good, some bad. So you have to have early adopters. There's these pioneers out there. When we're going west, there's folks, there's somebody who just rode a horse out there and said, you know what, you don't want to go this way. You want to go this way. And then they got somebody else to go, and then pretty soon they got wagon trains going on. I'm not saying that was good or bad. I'm just saying that's how it happened here, it happened in Europe, it happened in China, everywhere, right? Somebody goes out there first. They pay, they come back and say, oh, so you didn't fall off the edge of the world. We can send another ship, right? Right now you're in the early days. So the best thing you can do is whatever you can do that does not put your funds at risk. The best thing you can do is jump in and do whatever you can do that doesn't put funds at risk. That was the cool thing about most DAOs. Unless they're investment DAOs, they really don't have much funds. There's really no place in there, right? Kind of cool.
Which leads us to talking about the exciting thing which leads us to the Localist DAO that I'm excited to be part of. And would you talk about it?
Well, so go back to yours and Dana's early question. What is a DAO, and then why, and what are use cases? Right. That was kind of, so we'll kind of circle back in that thing. Why create? Why? What is out there that one could actually look at, get enough people to think the same way, that they would align with you and work, right? And so what are problems out there? So the problem, I'm a localist, I've been a unapologetic localist for a couple of decades. I believe in the 10th Amendment, and I believe more control and power needs to be decentralized and moved to local control. That local school boards, local water authorities, local towns, counties, cities, they probably know what's needed, and they're 50 miles around where they live, more so than centralized government. See, if you think about some of this stuff, blockchain is decentralization, okay? And so that's corporates on the other. If you look at governance to the other side, we've definitely centralized things. A president, a vice president. We have the Senate, which actually does things. So if you look at the president and the Senate, all those folks were set up in order to take care of more national and international issues. Every state got 2 senators, didn't matter how many people you had, you got 2 senators. Now, Congress is actually the top level of localism, because congressmen and women are supposed to represent the people that sent them to Congress. Now, I know they represent the party that got them into Congress, or maybe some financial backers that got them in there. But take that aside, what was supposed to happen, what is supposed to happen, okay? And so you start looking and say, okay, what's there? Andrew Yang, who ran for president, he's got a DAO going on. It's called the Forward Party, okay? His thing was, there's left, there's right, let's go forward, okay? His thing is to try and create another third party. So you have the Green Party, you have the Libertarians, there's all kinds of parties. We feel that they made a big mistake. That everybody wants to create a party to get power, to decentralize, to finally be the king of and the emperor of the system, right? So all third parties, their whole thing is to try and get on enough ballots in order to become president. Well, we've seen how that works out. A lot of times that actually works out the other way. Mm-hmm. Swing voters go that way, and the person that you didn't want to get elected because they were able to move enough votes. So our premise is this: the 10th Amendment actually is written there. It was the 10th one, okay? All powers that aren't for the federal government, which would be defense, national defense. See, nobody in the early days, 13 colonies, wanted to not be part of that collective, because then England or France or Spain or somebody would just attack North Carolina or Georgia. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't know, everybody would come to their rescue. And if, more importantly, the other side didn't know that if you attack Georgia, kind of like NATO right now, you attack one, you attack us all. So you need a federal government to provide defense. You need it to happen to where everybody outside that would be a foe says, hold a second, if we attack Georgia or Atlanta or Alabama, I know they're going to bring New Yorkers at us and everybody else at us. Let's think this through, right? Commerce. You couldn't have it to where in those 13 colonies, Georgia's charging everybody that's Yankee so much more, and New York won't deal with Georgia at all, because you have to have interstate commerce, right? You have to have transportation. You have to have free flow of goods and ideas and citizens. So that's where the federal government was kind of supposed to be. A lot of the other stuff was supposed to be done at the state level, where people live and work. We believe that. So the localist DAO, localist, Localist, DAW, DAO, what that does is it says, can we get enough other people? And if you start thinking about that, well, who's a localist? Well, you guys have local Shop Raleigh. There are all kinds of local organizations out there already. Local food, local investment, credit unions are local. Right now, based on the current economic control and from fiscal, you wouldn't be able to get credit unions approved because they're decentralized. It would be very hard for somebody to actually make it to where, you mean we're going to let people keep the money in their own communities and not send it to us to be distributed back to them? No, that doesn't sound like a good idea. We need big banks. We need a big stock market, not stock markets all over the country that used to be. Look at what North Dakota is doing with regards to their banking system. They've been able to do things because the state puts all of their money in the North Dakota banks, and that makes it available for other people that are there versus sending it to, Bank of America and then give us a little interest, not coming back. So what we say is, can we get enough of local food? Farmers markets came from the localist movement. Farm to Fork came from the localist movement. Shop local, localist movement. These are all localist ideas. And here's what we say. Most people, whether they're Republican or Democrat, liberal, conservative, you love where you live. You chose to be there. You love it. You love the rivers, you love the streams, you love the mountains, you love the oceans, you love the parks, you love it. And you know the problems that you have. And most people on both sides, both parties, they want their town or their city or they want to have, they're conservative. They want a balanced budget, but they're also liberal. They don't want a lot of kids to not have good schools and single moms to not be able to take care of things. So many of us, when we get local, some of that conservative and liberalism and all that kind of stuff goes out the wayside a little bit, and we'll agree, if allowed to, we'll agree on more things than we would if we send all the control to the central government, which is what we do right now. And then we get back, we fight to get things back. So the localist DAO is set up just in the US. We've already talked to folks in the UK. We have friends over there. But this will be so DAOs can be international. DAOs can be multiple languages. This is a DAO just in the US, just 50 states, Puerto Rico and Guam territories. So 50 states and 2 territories, because those are also citizens of this country. And if you think about it, when I just said Guam and Puerto Rico, there are people that are going to say, why should they have it? Well, they're citizens of the US, their territory. The Guam says the first place, it's where the American day starts. The sun hits there in the morning before it hits anywhere else, right? Strategically viable, etc. But they really don't have, we don't know what Guamanians want. They're never asked. Puerto Ricans, they're never asked. Coloradans, quite frankly, sometimes we're never asked. North Carolinians in certain things that have a national import or something that's national that influences you, you're never really asked. And if representatives are more concerned with what the party's doing and more concerned with staying in office rather than resolving the challenges and the opportunities that are at the local level, we will continue to be in this place we are right now. So our thinking was, wouldn't it be great to use a blockchain in DAOs to bring together the best minds that are localist minds, the best minds that actually say, yes, I understand. We're not seceding from the nation, from the country, but I understand there's problems at the local level that I'd like to actually help with in my area. And I'm not going to ask Congress and the Senate about it. It's permissionless. I'm not asking for permission. It's autonomous. Pat's not in charge. There will be many, many better minds than mine that come forward, and Martin's and Dana's. There will be folks that never had a chance to do anything and say, you know what? I can help you. I can help you with code. I can help you with smart contracts. I can help you with governance. I can help you with treasury. We're launching. We're actually launching soft on July 4th. We thought that was just a nice opportunity to take advantage of an incredible, meaningful holiday. Okay, we're kind of declaring our independence from the centralized government. We're not, again, no foe. There's nothing wrong with saying the place where you live and work and raise your children. There's nothing wrong with saying that's the most important place for you. Nothing wrong with that. Because in our country, if that wasn't, then you were allowed to move someplace else. Put roots there. Help with that community. So we just think that the 10th Amendment actually was our go signal. We don't have to ask for permission. things that the federal government shouldn't be doing are ours already. We're already endowed with that. We have no interest in trying to have a presidential candidate. We have no interest in being involved in the senatorial races at all. We have no interest in actually creating a third party. What we want to try and do is let folks know that in your local area, you actually buy the Constitution. Again, Dana, back to your question, how do you get people to do? You know what? Sometimes you have to take what's already been provided to you. Don't yield it to the central government. And I'm not, this isn't revolutionary. It was number 10. You know what I mean? And when you get past some of the early ones that you'd have to have just to have a kind of a free society, you get to 10 and you've been empowered. That's the one that empowers the states and the local governments to do things. I think it was really a top of mind, especially of those 13 early colonies, right? There's early states. I think it was top of mind that local folks resolved local problems and took care of local challenges that some other place couldn't say, we're going to have X waste, but let's send it out to Nevada. Nobody's out there. You never asked the folks in Nevada whether they liked being the storage for bad toxic materials. You know, you don't have to where somebody can have a plant upriver, dump whatever they want to it, and now our farmers downriver can't do anything because all the water's toxic. I think if you had more folks locally working with the folks nationally, I think we would have just a better opportunity for advancement of those ideas. And how do we do that? There happens to be this little piece of code that sits on the blockchain that allows for something called a DAO. We've been empowered and we didn't have to ask for permission. And we don't have to worry about trust because it'll all be out there for everybody to see and everybody to actually engage with. Martin, I'm pretty excited about it. Now, yes. I'm not going to show the stuff right now because, quite frankly, to get back to Dana's point, how do you make it to where people that really have an axe to grind in politics don't come trolling and storming the gates?
Right.
So we're going to have a process that people will have to go through in order to get to that point of there. It's not a monetary process.
Right.
It's do you believe what we believe? Can you commit time to what we're trying to do? Is this something that makes sense to you? Understanding that there's no real economic gain for you. There's a social good. Do you want to be part of that legacy kind of work? And so it'll be a process. So although we launch soft, when I say soft, July 4th, very few people that ever see this will get the invite. And not personal, it's just we've made a list of folks that we already know are all over the country working to set up local finance stuff, to invest in their local area, to really move shop local programs, to really get businesses together. We chambers of commerce. We know that there's already legacy organizations out there that just need to be brought together in a way that somebody's not trying to take them over. They're trying to empower them. Dana's word, trying to empower them to do things that were already on their mission statement.
What I'm going to do is I'll put links below, Pat, for people that want to follow like the Twitter account and others.
There you go.
They can learn what's available right now, because I am so excited to be part of this and contributing to the education, which I love. And then we'll also put the link below of Dana and my professional training course on crypto in general, because this is something we see as like the automobile. The first automobiles were smelly. There weren't good roads. Horse and buggies were still a better idea, and so on and so on. And what's dominating our transportation today. So that's how we see the entire process. It's important to start learning, and it really does take a while because it's not something we can touch that we're familiar with. It's just like quantum mechanics takes a while to get your head around it because you can't grab something that's a quantum mechanics in the real world. This is also takes a little time of dipping your toe, learning something, trying some stuff out to get that gestalt sense of what it really is. And that's what Dana and I have. That's why when we're training, we're both out breaking things. I have a crypto wallet. I've tried a few of them. And I'm excited to be part of this localist DAO because I also believe small and local communities are the backbone of our country. Small and local businesses are it. And we all need to organize to make sure they can't not hear our voice. They can't just make decisions that don't involve us. And I believe that the reason most things we see happen is because good people have stayed silent, not because good people spoke up, raised their hand, and challenged and communicated what they wanted.
If you were in a family, and when you sat down to dinner, you were never really allowed to talk.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, you're not going to want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we, country-wise, are a family, and lots of folks have been asked, just don't talk. We got this. Mm-hmm. Just elect us, trust us, empower us. And you know what? At certain levels, you can do that, and we need to do that. Certain things need top down. Again, you're not going to do. You need a Department of Defense. You need certain things. We need to be able to we need to be able to transact commerce between different places. Those things, no one's going to argue those things. But if we get an opportunity to just bring some, I think the states are the best place as a laboratory to test healthcare. We get a chance to actually look at this right now, and maybe there's some compromise we can make with neighbors that the politicians weren't able to make between themselves. Just because the parties and the politicians weren't able to figure out compromises today in all areas doesn't mean the compromises aren't there. I believe if we all got used to maybe walking away from negotiations and some of these things, everybody a little upset, everybody not getting what they wanted, everybody understanding that compromise is not a bad word. It's not a bad thing. You're not weak because you compromise and try and get things done. We get a lot more done. And the real challenges and problems are within 50 miles of where you guys are and 50 miles of where the person that's talking about this. It's in the 50 miles. The founder set that up in the original time. So I'm looking forward to it, Martin. We reached out to you early on and said, Martin, we'd like you in the DAO. You're going to do our education stuff. You're going to lead that area of it. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to that. I've got a list of a lot of folks, and put the Twitter link up there and any other ways they can do that. And I would just ask folks right now, give us a little runway. Mm-hmm. In all frankness, we don't know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm just going to be honest with you. We don't know what we're doing. Here's what we do know. If we get enough like-minded people that want to make positive, constructive change, that group will know what they're doing. That group will bring that stone soup together, and everybody will bring a little bit of something that just makes it good for everybody. That's the agenda. And that's the objective. So good to visit with you guys.
Wow, this has just been fascinating, guys. And some of the thoughts just kind of sum up maybe some things here. You've said so much and covered so much territory, Pat, about the DAOs, and then also the related cryptocurrency and underlying blockchain. But the visions, as you speak, I think about my upbringing in a small industrial town in New England, and we had a lot of autonomy. Yes, we had national stuff going on and all that, but there were a lot of very thriving, small, successful businesses. We had highly educated people that came back from major universities to become lawyers and doctors in a small town. And, I think you hear today a lot about communities breaking down and so forth. This could be a community builder, both in terms of not just rural America, but also in the community, in mid-sized and large communities, it seems to me.
Yep.
And so I think it's just fabulous to hear what you guys are doing with this, with your localist DAO, and who knows what the future could hold in terms of other things you can't yet anticipate, the benefits of giving people maybe back some of that strength that they've lost through being disempowered.
Right. I totally agree with everything you just said. Because even if you look at the biggest cities, there's the north side, there's the south end, there's this borough, there's that parish, there's this. In each of our states, there's different places that are different, and they're different for a reason. And quite frankly, we love the differences that are in those areas. There's a reason why I go to certain places in Colorado, although I live in Colorado, because I just love how they've figured out how to run their community or do things. And so it just seems to be, and it always seems to be about power and those kind of things. But if we put that aside and said the power structure doesn't have to rule as much anymore, and understanding I'm not naive, it will, but we just put that aside a second and said, what could we do if we all just talk to each other? What could we do if we all just listened to each other? And I think it's a lot easier to do that at the smaller levels, families and communities and towns and parishes and boroughs and that kind of thing, versus trying to do this from the top down. I wish Andrew Yang a lot of success in his Forward Party. I wish everybody success in what they're trying to do to make things better. I just think we've been down that road before. It hasn't worked out well. The simplest of things aren't done. And so let's try some bottom up stuff. Seems to me that all the stuff that lasts forever were grassroots things, not top down things. I think we have a success model of generations that we can actually go back on and pull up and benefit from. So appreciate it, guys.
This was excellent. Thanks, Pat. We'll put links below. And I do want to tell people, click subscribe and the bell so you'll see future content. This was just so exciting. And leave your questions below. So you'll be able to see them and might get some ideas for future shows that we can do.
We're always listening. Yep. So thanks, guys.